Welcome to the third module in the CTL Concepts and Course Design series. Module 3, Selecting Instructional Strategies. By the end of the module, you will be able to define instructional strategies, consider various elements including alignment with learning objectives and delivery constraints, and categorize instructional strategies as broad or specific, and identify 4 broad types of instructional strategies. Let's start with a definition. The term instructional strategy relates to the selection of the specific teaching and learning methods used, the selection of the material used in the teaching process, and the selection of the process or manner by which the material is delivered. The first thing to do before considering any particular strategy is to identify as best you can the constraints and opportunities you will face. Answer for yourself, what is the context of the course? Does the course emphasize knowledge or skills or attitude? Creating a course topics hierarchy will go a long way in answering these questions. Generating the hierarchy will require you to identify the most important topics. You may also wish to consider how the course relates to the whole program of study. How big is the class? A 400-student class will have different challenges and limitations than a 4-student class. Where is the class going to meet? Does the room have adequate Wi-Fi for any activities that involve web applications? Can you move the tables and chairs? Is there an audio-video system? And will you be able to bring your own laptop and have it work? Although these are very straightforward questions, the full appreciation of the physical environment and its impact on learning is an indication of thoughtful pedagogy and rigorous course design. Adjusting the instructional strategy to the setting may not always be possible nor desirable, in which case you may have to request a different room. The most obvious instructional material is the textbook, but it's not the only element that may be necessary. The learning management system, called eClass at the University of Alberta, is increasingly an important part of many courses. Further, if you're wanting the students to practice a skill, you have to ask, do you have the adequate resources, such as space and equipment? Make the effort to discover as much as you can about your future students. This may be difficult the first time you teach a course. However, the more you learn about your students, the better able you are to select appropriate strategies in future iterations of the course. What do you know about your future students? Are they first-year students? Are they taking the course because it is required or as an option? What will be the percentage of international students? Answering questions about student motivation, academic preparation, and cultural background can influence the decisions you make in designing your course. There are many ways to try to get this information, ranging from informal polls to asking students to fill out an information card to a fully validated conceptual inventory. Experience in teaching the same course repeatedly is the most common default approach to understanding the needs of students. Perhaps most importantly, you ought to consider your strengths, your limitations, and your comfort zone. While risk is a necessary part of innovation, developing strategies that work with your strengths as an instructor can minimize possible negative outcomes. Here are some specific methods categorized under 4 broad headings. Instructor-centered is a very common method typified by the lecture. However, there are a number of variations of the traditional didactic approach to teaching, such as a panel discussion. Interactive methods foster maximum communication and involvement between the instructor and the students. There is a minimum of formal lecturing. Experiential methods involve real-life experiences or simulation of these experiences. They often deal with application and critical thinking skills, as well as cultivating a reflexivity or attitude in the students. Individualized teaching, self-directed or self-paced, students working independently of an instructor to achieve the learning objectives provided for them or negotiated with the instructor. In a single lesson, an instructor can use a mixture of these or a few different learning activities. These strategies are not mutually exclusive and can be used in conjunction with each other. Indeed, there are many types of strategies within each instructional method, and strategies can fit under more than one method, depending how they're employed. This still is the question as to how to select activities that are appropriate for the learning objective. The most simple way of selecting strategies, and the assessments as well, and we shall return to this in a later module, is contingent on well-formulated learning objectives. If the learning objective that you formulated in the previous module is adequate for the course and precise enough to assess, the instructional strategy may already be present in the objective itself. For example, write learning objectives in specific and behavioral terms. The verb very clearly suggests the activity that is the goal of the objective, and in this case it's writing. Recall the previous module's emphasis on action verbs. These verbs are the key element of learning objectives. A well-selected action verb makes the expectations of the objective transparent to the student in terms of both activities and assessments. These carefully selected verbs become the fulcrum of an aligned course. Here are some helpful hints. Start small. Do not be overly ambitious and introduce a whole number of changes at the same time. This can be overwhelming for both you and the students. And if you introduce more than one innovation at a time, it becomes a challenge to identify the cause of any changes in student performance. At the beginning of the class, take the time to explain to the students the reasons behind the new activity and why you're employing it in class. Students have a tendency to be very conservative managers of pedagogy and may take some convincing. Solicit feedback from colleagues, an educational developer, and students, and always be open to critical feedback. For your assignment, analyze the course context and needs insofar as you're able. Then, while keeping the learning objectives in mind, select a few exercises. If you need some more help in brainstorming instructional strategies, please consult the series of small videos related to this module. This list and other resources can be found in the resources and reference file in your e-class. And always feel free to contact the